Okay, this is the training for STAAR and STAAR M, Math, Science, and Social Studies. The actual test dates are May 8th through 11th, 2012. The original training date for this was April 19th of 2012. I'm David Dipple, Testing Coordinator at Noble High School. Okay, please make sure you note that the training does not take the place of reading all of the appropriate manuals. And here is a list of all potential manuals, digests, frequently asked questions, and things like that. These are all available online if you have any questions. Actual test days we're dealing with: Tuesday, the 8th, we're going to be taking math tests. 9th graders take Algebra 1 and Geometry. Then there is a field test for Algebra 2 students. This will be probably 10 testing rooms in the 3200 hall, and these are 10th graders currently taking Algebra 2. Now, while these tests are going on, everyone else in the building will be downstairs, either in the annex or in the 3200 hall in classrooms, working on something related to the administration's counseling, things like that. Wednesday, the 9th, we're going to be doing all science tests for STAAR. That's biology for 9th graders. And then all students taking chemistry. There's about 300 of those. They will be taking a test also. And the physics students, there's about 180, I believe, of those. All physics, all chemistry, and all biology students will be taking tests on Wednesday from 7 o'clock in the morning till about noon. All other students, again, will be over in the annex, working on whatever the plans are for those days. And then Thursday, the 10th, is World Geography. That is only 9th graders. The rest of the building, 10th, 11th, 12th graders, will be on a 8-period day on Thursday. There's no late arrival. And then Friday are any makeup tests, any students that have been absent, any students that have multiple tests. We'll take those. And again, that's only freshmen on Friday. Now, the actual schedule for testing days: please arrive starting at 6:45. Pick up your test materials. If you're a hall monitor, you need to be in your area by 7 o'clock so you can direct the students. Testing actually starts at 7:25. Unlike tax, we cannot wait. We need to make sure the students are in and get things rolling, get everything set up so that you can actually begin testing shortly thereafter. This is a 4-hour test. STAAR tests are timed. If we start on time, our hope is if you start by 7:25 and you get the directions going and things like that, you'll actually physically start the timer at 7:45. And if you start by 7:45, the actual testing time, then 4 hours later is 11:45, and we can start wrapping things up. Need to return materials to the 3100 office, and after all that, then students will go to lunch. And once we determine all the tests are in, we can start releasing students to lunch. Do not release students just because your group is done. Okay, now answer documents for the STAAR test are different than tax. There is a form number that must be bubbled. It will be over on the right side. There are A for absent, S for score. That's standard, just like tax. The difference is they are buried down in the bottom. And there's a test date. You must bubble the test date. Now, depending on the test, math, science, whatever it is, there'll just probably be one date. This particular example had 2 dates because it was a writing and for the reading and the writing test. But you'll have to bubble in the date. We cannot pre-bubble those dates like we have in the past. There's just too many documents. Students will need to bubble the form numbers, or the teacher will, and absent and score. Then up at the top, they need to write in the booklet number, and you also need to write the booklet number on the roster. So you, as a test administrator, will have a lot of writing that will have to be done. So all these documents need to be completed. And that is every single day. They get a different answer sheet and different set of test booklets. So unlike tax, everything is new every day. There's nothing is retained, no material is retained. The actual procedures: make sure you read the manuals, read the materials, sign things in, sign them out. Make sure once you get to your room, we prefer you be there by 7 o'clock because there's a lot of setting up that needs to be done. Get the test materials out on the desk so when the students come in, you can take care of the pens and pencils things like that. Make sure you sign the material control form, and please count carefully to make sure you have what you're supposed to have. Make sure all testing procedures are followed exactly as are written in the testing manual. You must have an administrator manual, and you must read verbatim the directions. Make sure you read the cell phone statement and emphasize to the students that they can lose this test. This test does count, and that especially for the 9th graders, if it's a field test, those scores won't count, but hopefully we'll get them back this time. And so the cell phone statement is important, and it can invalidate their test if they are found with a cell phone. Make sure you actively monitor. These are shorter tests, and there's a lot to be going on, so active monitoring is important. Provide a quiet, comfortable environment as much as possible, and make sure your students stay quiet even if your room is done, because the rooms around you will still be testing. Make sure you double check the student's answers on his or her answer document for completion. When you're announcing the time, if you say there's 3 hours left, encourage them to go ahead and bubble their answers so that when they get through, remind them that once the time is through, they cannot go back and bubble. So if you'll kind of, as you're going along, or if a student is done early, make sure you scan. Don't check for accuracy, but make sure you scan to make sure they have bubbled. And if you have any problems, issues, concerns, get a hall monitor and notify me as soon as possible. Don't allow students to bubble any of the demographic information on the front. We have labels that takes care of all the demographics except for any accommodations. You shouldn't see those if you're in a large group. Small groups will see those. And again, no cell phones, iPods, any technology that has to be taken up ahead of time. Please have them put it at the front of the classroom. They can use highlighters. Please make sure they don't write on the answer document with a highlighter. And we cannot encourage testing strategies, so we can't force students to take highlighters. They cannot use scratch paper for any, should be STAAR testing. And you're not allowed to answer any questions that relate to the content of the test. You cannot leave the room unless there's a trained substitute, so get a hall monitor to watch and make sure if a hall monitor does come into your testing room that they do sign the roster. And we can change testing rooms if that's needed. You cannot reinforce, review, or distribute any testing strategies. You can't require students to use particular strategies. That's why the highlighters are optional. Make sure they're not sleeping, keep them working, because this is a timed test, which again they're not used to. Students have to remain seated and quiet while test booklets are open. They're not allowed to work on previous sections, which fortunately with the STAAR there are no previous sections. It's a single document. Individual students can take breaks, but that is a part of the 4-hour testing time. We don't stop the clock just because a student wants to take a break. We need to turn on a PC that's in the room, and I will email you a stop countdown timer. So you need to turn that on as soon as you start the test, start the time so you know when the 4 hours is up. Please announce 3 hours are left, 2 hours are left, 1 hour, and then under that you can say 15 minutes, 30, 15, whatever. And each time you do that, I suggest you remind them to make sure they're bubbling as they go, and so they don't wait until the end and the time runs out. As far as directions, you need to turn to page 72. And if you're giving oral accommodations, those are in Appendix C, which is on page 109. Page 72 is where all directions start. Math, science, and social studies, all levels of the test, use the same directions. There is a printed sheet you need to put in your answer document to replace, I believe, 74 and 75, because there were numerous corrections, so we just had an insert for that. Math and science, make sure they have 2 pencils are available as they need them. Please don't pass out 2 pencils. We don't have enough for every kid to be passing out. They're supposed to bring a pencil, and we will give them a second one. Highlighters if they ask, and a calculator. That's for math and science. And then social studies, again, a second pencil if they ask for it. But again, we don't supply multiple pencils. After testing, make sure you inspect the answer documents, make sure they're bubbled, If the testing time is over, they cannot go back. Bubble the score code. Make sure you have the form and the date is all bubbled. Make sure your roster is all completed. After everything's completed, students can stay quiet, and then please return everything to the 3100 office as soon as everything is completed and your 4 hours is up. As far as lunch, after it's all over, somewhere between 12:15 and 12:30, depending on what's going on in the building, after materials are collected and returned, we will tell you when and where we're going to go down. Somewhere 12:15, 12:30, kind of depending on the day. Emergency plans, make sure you secure things, escort students out, and safety is the highest priority. There is a makeup test, so we will track students. Make sure by 8 o'clock you have attendance so we can come get it, call the students, and get them started. If you're in a room, please pick up boxes starting at 6:45, get things out, and make sure you have a timer, pencils out, answer sheets, and if you're returning them, make sure you put the answer sheets on the top in alphabetical order, the booklets in numerical order. These all have to be boxed and shipped out essentially the same day or within the next couple of days. If you're outside the hall or in the hallway, you need to give people breaks. Make sure you keep the doors closed, and especially on the third day when we have the building running, send students to the flexed area, 3100, to sit and wait until we have a late start room at 9 o'clock. And with small groups, accommodations are based on 504s. We do group them based on accommodations. There is a roster and a key, and again, there are new numbers this time. We're no longer going to use the tax numbers. Small group is going to be a 45A. Individual is 45B. And then read on request, there is only one option. It's unlike the tax, there's only one. It's a 56A if it's read on request, and 56B if you're reading the entire test. And again, the accommodations will be on a key down at the bottom. So if you have any questions, please let me know.